What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here, and nowadays we're just kind of used to battle passes being in pretty much every single game, from crappy little mobile games the whole way up to premium AAA releases such as Call of Duty. Battle passes started gaining huge popularity, and they mainly got really popular with Fortnite, and basically every publisher has seemingly jumped on the bandwagon of delivering games as a service type experiences or live service games through various season passes, or in other words, battle passes. These quote unquote battle passes release typically in seasonal format throughout the lifespan of a game, where basically a bunch of new, usually free content is added, again, in a games as a service or live service type model. These battle passes tend to have to be ranked up, whether you do challenges to rank them up or just strictly get EXP, basically grind the game to unlock their respective tiers and content and everything like that. And the battle passes usually give the developers revenue via a premium path. So while there's a lot of free content to draw you in, there's always a premium path that you pay extra money, and that's kind of how the game is funded going forwards. And usually it's about 10 to 15 bucks per season in order to get all those extra rewards. And usually that tier is what you really want to get, that has the meat of the content and all of the fun or cool stuff of the battle pass. And then obviously you also get the free stuff as well when you purchase those. But up until these new monetization techniques, Call of Duty handled their post-launch content in the form of map packs. Map packs, or expansions as they were also called, would arrive every few months and bring with them usually a few multiplayer maps between 3 and 5, and in Treyarch games and other games down the line eventually, usually you got a zombies experience on top of that. And then, if it was Modern Warfare games, sometimes you would get only maps, or maybe I think one game did Spec Ops maps as well. So that was pretty much all you had to look forward to. And these packs usually cost $15. I think Call of Duty 4's map pack was the only one to cost $10. Everything after that costs $15 per map pack. And again, these were the entirety of post-launch content up until recent games, the last couple of games right up until Black Ops 4 and Modern Warfare 2019. Now, there are benefits to both systems, but today we'll try to hash out which system is ultimately better, as more and more fans find themselves reflecting back and wondering if battle passes are really the upgrade that Activision and the community itself claimed they were when they were first introduced in Black Ops 4 and fully introduced in Modern Warfare 2019. So, as always, guys, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to leave a comment and like, and definitely subscribe for more content like this. It helps out the channel immensely and really pushes me to make more content like this for you guys. I try to dive into a topic of Call of Duty or other games at least once a week, so make sure to stick around on the channel to catch more of this type of content. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Now, first, I just want to go over kind of the pros, or the good things that the Battle Pass has brought. And obviously, the first thing is free content. Now, Call of Duty, we could go into a deep dive of all of the DLC offerings in the past, but, more often than not, you didn't really get any free content, right? You usually had to pay money to get things, apart from the occasional update or something like that brought something free to the game. Everything was paid, right? You paid the $15 per map pack, or the seasonal pass in terms of Black Ops 4, and that's how you got the extra stuff. Nothing really free. Very rarely did they give you free guns, anything like that. It was all gated behind money. But now that's not the case. You get everything that really means anything in terms of guns, maps, and modes, and any other additional gameplay elements that they add to the game for free. So there's a huge influx of free content. So someone who maybe doesn't have the means to, or doesn't want to spend money, can technically get loads more content throughout the yearly cycle without paying a single drop of money after the fact, which is a huge, huge upgrade to the DLC or map pack model. In addition to that, you usually get more frequent content drops. Typically, there has been 6 seasons. I think Vanguard maybe only had 5, if I'm remembering correctly. So sorry if that was wrong. But as opposed to typically getting 4 map packs. And in the case of like Modern Warfare 2, the old one, we only got 2 map packs. Call of Duty 4, we only got 1. World at War, we only got 3. So, anywhere from 1 to 4 releases over the course of the 12-month life cycle of a game. Now we're expected to get 5 or 6 or even more seasons, and they're starting to work in Reloaded, so there's almost 2 waves of content every season. So, almost up to like 12 releases of content throughout the course of the year. Now, obviously, that tends to lend itself to less at one time and a little more spread out. And I could run numbers and, flash numbers on the screen. I didn't do extensive research on this, but I think it kind of depends on the game itself and the season itself, whether they end up coming out on top with more maps or anything than the DLC model. But typically it has stayed around the same. It's just more evenly spread out, as opposed to not getting anything for 3 or 4 months and then suddenly getting 4 maps all in one day. You tend to get a map here, 2 maps there, a map here, so on and so forth. But this also means much more frequent patches and updates. Although this isn't entirely tied to the Battle Pass model, it did kind of come with that more games as a service model that started to launch whenever Call of Duty started to adopt this games as a service model. And on top of that, one of the greatest things about Battle Passes is all players get all the maps, modes, and other content for free. So no longer is anyone left behind by not buying map packs, right? Your friend, just bought a different game, so now he doesn't have the cash to get the second map pack. Well, now you can't play the brand new maps with him. That is no longer an issue. Pretty much everything that comes out, everyone has all at one time, which is great. And even with exclusivity deals, all consoles, all platforms get all the content at one time, and everybody gets it. So you'll never have to worry about missing out on playing a map or not getting a gun. It's available to everyone for free. Matchmaking, because of this, is also much easier, right? No longer is the player base fractured. And some people have DLCs 1 and 3 while others have 2 and 4 and maybe 1 and 2. No, everyone is on the same level playing field, which means matchmaking is easier. Now, obviously, skill-based and engagement-only matchmaking have kind of hindered that point, but at the end of the day, matchmaking is so much easier when everyone's pulling from the same map list. Additionally, anyone who gets the game after the content season has completed, whether it be a year or 2 years in the future, just gets the game completely. They don't have to worry about, I only bought the base game. No, if you pay $60 or $70 or whatever the case may be, you get the whole game, including everything that came out for that game over the course of its content season. Now, obviously, you might miss out on certain content within the previous seasons, which is another issue for another day in another video. But suffice it to say, you get all the maps that came out during that game's lifespan. You get all the guns. You might have to do challenges to unlock them. But at the end of the day, you get a much more complete experience, right? If you buy the game a year or 2 later, you are getting the whole thing for one singular price, as opposed to $70 and then $15 here, $15 there, $10 here for all of the DLC. It's also much cheaper to own all the content, not counting skins. I know we could go into a different, whole different discussion about how if you bought all the skins, you'd be thousands of dollars in debt. But basically, you now can get all the content for free, pretty much. But also, if you grind the battle passes, if you play Call of Duty enough, you can actually unlock enough battle or COD points, rather, to purchase the next battle pass. So potentially, if you had some leftover COD points from the previous game and you just kept grinding, you could get every single bit of DLC content, not counting store bundles, from season 1 the whole way up to season 6 for free without paying a single penny. And that is super cool, right? So you get all the in-season skins, all the operator stuff, all the calling cards, weapon charms, weapon blueprints, whatever the case may be, as long as you grind, which we'll get into how that is not always a great thing later on. But suffice it to say, that's an amazing value proposition, right? For someone like me who is super cheap with their money, super stingy, the last thing you want to do is have to pay money for everything. And in this case, if you just grind hard enough, you can get everything for free, as opposed to $50, $60 for all of the maps in the previous games. There's also much more items to unlock. So With the new model, we get stuff like weapon charms and weapon skins and vehicle skins. And while not all that content is exactly great, and there's a lot, and I mean a lot of filler, at the end of the day, a lot of the previous games, we only got maps, but now we're getting maps and some other cool stuff, which again has varying levels of coolness, of usefulness, whatever the case may be, but at least it's something. You're not just worrying about buying, 4 maps, maybe a new gun. You're getting a whole bunch of stuff with the Battle Pass model. Now, obviously, like I said before, the Battle Pass model isn't all perfect, right? There is some downsides to it, and we'll kind of get into that here. Obviously, one of the biggest things that the community has been complaining about, has been bringing up in online discussions, is the dwindling amount of content. So with this seasonal model and with the shift to a little more free-to-play type monetization practices, we've been getting dwindling content amounts. Now, obviously, Season 3 kind of righted the ship in that regard in terms of Modern Warfare 2. We'll see how 4, 5, and 6 go going forward, but Seasons 1 and 2 were very bare bones and lackluster. And a lot of people attributed to that as, they weren't paid content offerings. And we'll kind of get into why that made a difference later on. But suffice to say, a lot of people thought that the Battle Pass model was to blame for these dwindling content amounts, that we started getting drip-fed content as opposed to getting an actual nice stream of content. And to kind of pair with that, there's also a lot of filler content. Now, we talked about that in my last point where we talked about, kind of the stuff that's filled out in the Battle Pass, but not a lot of the stuff that we get is even useful. Right? I mean, how many times have you been psyched to get a specific weapon charm, or you got a really ugly operator skin, or a sticker, or a calling card, or 10 minutes or 15 minutes of gun XP that you'll never use because you already have the mastery camo, right? There's a lot of filler content. And while some of that is good and it is additional to the map packs that we're used to, there's also just a bunch of stuff that you could tell they throw in there just to claim that they're giving you content. When realistically, it took some intern 25 minutes to design a lazy looking sticker, and now that's an hour worth of grinding to unlock that level in the Battle Pass. Shop bundles have also taken over as the main revenue source. Now, I will do a video later really breaking down why I feel like the shop bundles are kind of becoming cancerous for Call of Duty, but just as a side note, just know that because of the Battle Pass, because it's a little more consumer friendly, Activision still needs to make that money. And so that has forced them to just go off the wall in terms of the bundles that they're creating, the prices they charge for the bundles, everything like that, and it's getting kind of out of control. But part of that is because the Battle Pass map model is fairly consumer friendly whenever you look at it, and obviously Activision can't be having that. That just is not allowed. And to kind of tie into that, Activision uses the Battle Pass model kind of as a rationale, or as means to treat the game almost as free to play like Fortnite would, or as many other games have adopted the model as well. A lot of those games that have adopted the Battle Pass model, have adopted the games as a service, they're all free games. So kind of the aggressive microtransaction, the aggressive monetization of those games makes a little more sense, because at the end of the day, you're only paying, $0 for the game. So it makes a little more sense if they try to grab $20 or $30 out of you in just random DLC offerings, as opposed to Call of Duty, which is a premium $70 release cycle every single year. Obviously, Warzone and DMZ players don't really count in this, and that just kind of compounds the issue, because so many of the players are in a free-to-play model, coming in from Warzone and DMZ, that just gives them more fuel to the fire to just be super aggressive in their monetization practices, and it's starting to get carried away. Again, probably content for a different video, but it's just really becoming an issue, and I think the Battle Pass model is just giving Activision that kind of rationale, that ammunition to keep pushing forward with that. You also don't get all the content in the pass unless you grind your ass off, right? So every Battle Pass typically comes with 100 tiers. Now, those 100 tiers take anywhere between, I've heard some people unlocking them in roughly 15 55 to 60 hours. I've heard some people who are a little farther down on the skill ladder, so to speak, taking over 110 hours per season to unlock every single tier. So it kind of depends on how good you are, if you're utilizing double XP weekends, stuff like that. But all in all, unless you can grind between 60 and 100 hours of content every 60 days or 70 days, however long it takes for a season, you don't get all of that content, even if you paid real money for it. So you could very well spend $10 to buy the Battle Pass, the premium Battle Pass, right? And that gives you the chance to unlock 100 tiers of stuff. That doesn't mean you get the 100 tiers of stuff. It just means that you have the chance to, right? They are allowing you to grind for that stuff. And again, if you're an adult, if you have other hobbies, if you have anything else to do with your life, 60 to 100 hours within the course of 2 months might be too tall of a hill to climb. And thus you lose access to a lot of that content, especially the tier 100 stuff, which is usually the coolest stuff in the Battle Pass, the thing that makes people want to spend money on the Battle Pass. You lose out on all that unless you can grind that much every single season. Now, again, we've talked about this in previous videos. I do wish that they'd let you work through previous seasons' Battle Pass, especially after the main life cycle of the game has ended. But unfortunately, as of the time of recording this video, Activision still has not gotten on that bandwagon, and they're just leaning full on into the FOMO aspect. And if you don't play right now, you're going to lose it forever, and you'll never be able to unlock some of the stuff. Obviously, maps and weapons notwithstanding. So now that we've kind of broken down everything good and bad about the Battle Pass model, let's talk about what's good and what's bad about the DLC model or the map pack model. So obviously, one of the biggest things is content had to be good. It had to be original and eye-catching and really unique in order to entice people to actually buy the packs. Right? They couldn't just release any old map and say, well, hey, you can't complain, it's free. They had to almost sell it, right? And we talked about this as well just in Call of Duty in general, where in order to get your money, they used to have to put out a great product in order to get you to buy it. Now that's not so much the case, unfortunately, but with map packs, the same went for there, right? They had to give you 4 or 5 really cool, really unique, really fun maps to draw you in to spend that additional 15. If they would have released some of the piss poor maps that they've given us over the last couple of years in a DLC bundle, no one would buy it. Sales would be horrible, right? But because they're free, they have a little more leeway to be a little more uninspired and a little more lazy with their map design, their maps, just overall offerings for DLC maps. Another pro of the map pack model is there's just a lot more original maps, right? There was obviously still some remakes and stuff like that, but by and large, they still tried to pump out a lot of original maps, and some of the best maps that have ever come out in Call of Duty were DLC maps. They were part of a map pack, and those are the two hugest arguments for going back to the map pack model. Is everyone seems to think that we got the quality was better, right? Maybe the quantity was smaller, but it was a quality over quantity approach. It wasn't as aggressively, monetized and everything like that. It was just, hey, 4 times a year, we're going to give you some really cool maps, maybe a zombies experience as well, maybe a gun, like in the case of Black Ops 2 with the Peacekeeper and stuff like that, and then that's it. And they spent a lot of time perfecting those, really making a good, solid product that would sell well. Now they don't have to worry about that. They just spit out whatever map comes out. They'll shoot us some remakes, as you saw in the first 2 seasons of Modern Warfare 2, and it's just a lot less inspired than the old map packs were. Unfortunately, while I was making the script, that's really the only pros that I could think of, right? There's a lot of cons to the map pack model, and I'll kind of go through those now. Some of these I've touched on above. Obviously, it's hard to say how good something is without kind of tearing down its opposition, right? So some of these I may have touched on, but we'll just elaborate again. Obviously, matchmaking was super fractured based on the DLCs that you owned back in the day. So if any of you have not played the older Call of Duties, literally you could only matchmake with people who had the same DLCs as you. And a lot of people talk about how they had to turn off or uninstall certain map packs just so they could play with other people. And eventually, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years into the future, everyone would just uninstall all the DLC. You never play DLC maps because the quickest way to matchmake with the 5 or 10,000 people that are left playing those games is just to go back to vanilla. That way you don't have to worry about matchmaking with anyone else. This killed games a lot quicker because players just couldn't matchmake as easy because 10% of the player base owned only DLC 1 and 20% of the player base owned DLC 2 and 3. You get my point, right? Everyone bought different DLC packs. Obviously, there was a bunch of people that all bought the season pass, so they had all 4, and that's great, but it just fractured the community, and we don't have that anymore. Everyone has all the same maps all the time, like we talked about earlier. Also, you would be guaranteed every year, if you wanted to own everything that came to that game, meaningful content that is, in terms of maps and everything like that, you would be guaranteed to spend another $50 to $60 every year just to get all post-launch content. So we talked about above how if you're really into COD and you grind really hard, you could technically spend $70 at the beginning of the year to buy the game and then not spend another penny, get every single skin that was released, not counting shop bundles, every single map, every single weapon, everything that they've released throughout the 5 or 6 seasons, and you pay nothing. But back in the day, that wasn't even an option. Even if you played this game 20 hours a day, it didn't matter. You still had to fork over $50 to $60. And in the case of Black Ops 4, you couldn't even buy piecemeal $10 or $15 here and there. You had to spend $50 all up front, sight unseen, without seeing any of the maps, what you were getting really. You had to buy that season pass right up front or else you got nothing. And so it was just much less cost effective. Obviously, they're monetizing the hell out of the whales, so to speak, who spend $20, $30 for, a shop bundle and whatever. Again, different stuff for different video. But, the main point here is that back in the day, in order to play everything, it was another full cost of the game, right? So you pay $60 for the game and possibly another $60 in map packs just to get a few more maps, oftentimes, 16 or 20 additional maps by the end of the year. People also picking up the game later will have to pay a lot more money to get the full experience. I have that problem. I've had that problem several times, right? I bought, for example, I bought Black Ops 3 originally, whatever, and I didn't buy any of the DLC packs. Fast forward to about 2 or 3 years ago, and my friends all wanted to beat every single Easter egg. Now, luckily, they fixed some of that, but had it been any other game besides Black Ops 3, I would have had to pay $15 per DLC. Luckily, I only had to spend $8 per zombie map because they allowed you to just buy the zombie maps and not the multiplayer maps, but that was a one-off exception. Every other game, to this day, the DLCs are still $10 to $15. So right now, if you get a hankering to play World at War, you have to buy World at War, usually on the storefront for $50 or $60 still, unless you can get it on sale. Then you have to go through and buy all 3 of the DLCs. A game that came out 15 years ago, you still have to fork over all of that money just to get the full experience. Now, obviously, you can't really play multiplayer because the servers are dead, so the multiplayer map packs are pretty much useless. But in order to get those 3 zombie maps and play on those in the original setting, whatever, assuming you're not playing on PC, you're basically buying the game twice, 15 years after it came out, because the prices never go down, especially on the digital marketplace where all the DLCs are held. Contrast that with Cold War. So I bought Cold War to play zombies with a friend. I paid the $70 for Cold War. I know I'm stupid. I should have waited for it to go on sale. I was impatient. Anyways, I paid $70 for Cold War a year and a half after it came out. I downloaded it. I selected all of the downloadable content packs that came with it, for free, mind you, because they were just seasonal content. And immediately I had every single zombie experience right from the get-go. I paid $70. I had everything. I didn't have to buy additional DLCs. I didn't have to do anything. It all just came. And that's what future players will have to look forward to with all of these games from Modern Warfare 2019 and up. If you buy the game after the fact, Yeah, maybe the player counts are lower again. You're always going to run into that, but at the very least, you get everything that came out to that. Maybe you get 30 or 40 total maps on disc. However many maps came out during the course of its life cycle, however many zombie maps came out, Spec Ops maps. In this case, the raid, the various DMZ maps, and Al Mazrah, and everything that you get now. There's just such a large amount of content that you get nowadays for just the cost of admission, so to speak. And that was one of the biggest hangups, especially when writing this script, that I realized map packs really sucked at. They just gouged your wallet. Nowadays, Activision is really gouging your wallet, but in much more voluntary ways. Like, they're really annoying ways, but it's not mandated, right? You get all the content. It's just the extra stuff that they really try to gouge you on. So, obviously, I could rant about this for years, but basically, I just wanted to sum up kind of the good, the bad of both map packs as well as the new Battle Pass system. And so, you're wondering, AJ, you said at the very beginning of the video, we're going to talk about which one's better. And honestly, the conclusion that I came to is that the Season Pass model is still better. Even though Activision is starting to push their boundaries, and you can tell with every season, with every game, they kind of, push the envelope a little bit more to be less and less consumer friendly. At the end of the day, as a whole, it is still a much more consumer friendly process. The shop is getting egregious. I'll probably make another video talking about shop bundles at another time, but the Battle Pass itself is fine. Activision might be starting to ruin it with other methods, and that's obviously pushing the online discussion for people. Oh, I wish we had DLCs again. Oh, remember how great map packs were. But let's keep it focused, people. They were not better. Not by a long shot. Yeah, there was some perks to having the map pack system, and I definitely wish some of the creativity and, originality that came with those was back. But in almost every aspect, in terms of frequency of updates and, overall consumer friendliness and fairness and, your wallet, how your wallet feels at the end of a DLC season, it just, the advantage goes to the Battle Pass system every single time. Now, again, Activision is kind of going down a dark road. Who knows, in 2 or 3 years, this could be completely wrong, and maybe we will be better off going back to map packs. But at this time, I think we just need to take the rose-colored glasses off and remember just how how not consumer-friendly, rather, map packs were for this series. So that about wraps it up today, guys. I know this ran a little bit longer than expected, so make sure to let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you miss having the map pack DLCs, or are you all on board for the brand new Battle Pass and seasonal content release schedule that the new games have? As always, guys, if you've enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for similar content. And until the next time, guys, this has been Crunchy Frog. I'll catch you later.